the blame here should not go to Kinoti. I think Kinoti is in his right to do what he's doing.
Yes.
He has to acquit himself in the public sphere that he is actually performing his duties and investigating. And it's his business to make sure that everybody goes along with him. And two, we have to understand the context of some of these so-called trials in the media. Because we're in an era where every investigation or every crime being pursued is being said to be targeting certain people or individuals, or there are certain motives beyond pursuit for justice or trying to go after criminal activities.
Yes.
So he has to, he has a duty to, first of all, debunk this myth. And I think his, what is it called, spectacular videos of the, what transpired at the DP's office in regard to the Echesa fake arms deal, yes, is basically to say, look, this thing happened and it's so serious and the public had better be behind us as we pursue this and remove the politics out of it. Mm-hmm. So in that context, I'm likely to have sympathy for him. But on the other hand, I mean, we also shouldn't be, I think people should not be in a hurry to condemn media taking information from the police. That we have always done. It is that we have to use that information more judiciously and counter-check it. Mm. And if we are going to use that story as, stenographers, as Christine has said, then we should hold Kinoti and the people who give us that information to account after we use it. Mm. We should go back and say, hey, you said this, but this is what you brought to court. What happened in between? Because the importance of this is that along the way, and as we know, prosecutions in this country and investigations, there's always evidence being tampered with, some not ending up in court. Even what is revealed now might fizzle out in the way on the road to court.
Yes.
So it's also important that we also keep track of how far investigations are. If there are leads, we hold on to those. And the media has to carry the memory along the way to make sure that what we had at the beginning ends up at the end, or if not, there should be good reason why. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, that's how cases are crumbling in court, because we have had, and we know it, prosecution sometimes just messes up a case because of other influences, they've been compromised and so forth. So I think it is okay for me. And I think that we are in that era where we need to have what I would call participatory justice. In the past, we had investigations going on and whatnot. We ended up with no prosecution or acquittals or things like that, but we didn't follow it because the people who held those offices in the first place were always mean on information. You couldn't get anything when you went to inquire. So we should celebrate as media that we have at least investigative agencies and prosecuting agencies that are willing to share the investigations as we go along. But we must be guarded that we don't lead along a certain path, yes, because it's likely to happen as well. It's
definitely different times, yeah. And however, there are many who would ask if we're cautious enough with the details that we're being given. And if my director may just run some of the clips that we are having from the meeting, the supposed meeting, that there's now semantics about, or was it 1 hour, 22 minutes, was it 23 minutes? We get lost in that. But someone said, we know as much as a DCI and a DPP would want us to know. And with that, they use us. Are we working cautiously enough with that in mind?
I think first, Mark, I would say that Kinoti and journalists actually, they are doing a good job for this country and adhering to the Constitution. Because Article 35 of the Constitution on the access to information says that the citizens have got a right to know and have access to any information that is being held by government officers. And therefore, Kinoti, being in charge of these investigations, he is under obligation to share information that he has with the public. Let's begin from there. Then now the question is, how are journalists or media houses using the information that they obtain from Kinoti? Suppose Kinoti is carrying out these investigations and he refuses to share whatever he has with the journalists. I'm sure Masharia here and Victor and myself and Makali here will be out there accusing Kinoti of not releasing information. And I know some of the meetings we've had with the government officials, we've always complained that the problem why we are having information or stories that are inaccurate is because the government officers are not willing to share information with the media. Mm-hmm. And therefore we cannot demonize Kinoti. Kinoti has done his job. He has done investigations. He has given us the information. It's upon us now to use that information. How are we going to use that information? Kinoti doesn't write headlines in newsrooms.
He doesn't.
Kinoti, no, let me just finish. Kinoti does not write news in newsrooms.
Yes.
To me, as a Secretary of KUJ, I'm happy that Kinoti is sharing information with journalists.
Yes.
And therefore, it's upon journalists and editors in newsroom to see how they're going to use that stories. Secondly, the information that actually Kinoti is sharing with the media actually is helping us now to know where the weaknesses are in our criminal justice system. Mm-hmm. If you look at the stories that we've had and the events that have happened there the last 2 days, actually we are now trying to see where the weak links are.
Yes.
The differences between Kinoti and Haji. Very soon we'll be able to know that yes, we had this information, but where did we lose the cases? And Victor started very well. Mm-hmm. By saying that some of these cases are lost on the basis of technicalities, not because there were no information or investigations are not carried out. So if we were able to share this information from the beginning, yes, and the journalists or media houses are also able to share this information with the public, we are able to track where did we go wrong, where did we lose the ball, was someone compromised along the way, did the cases prosecuted very well in court. If you've been to court, and you will see that some of the cases, the way they are argued out in court, actually end up deciding how the judges are going to make the ruling. And therefore, we cannot say that because Kinoti is sharing information with the media, that's why we are losing. Let Kinoti share the information with us. Let us as the media and as journalists, as professionals, see how we are going to use that information. And therefore, we allow the public now to judge. This is what the Kinoti gave us. This is what ended up in court, and this is what the judges said. Then we are able to know that where is the problem in our justice system and how can we fix it.
Okay, and in less than 5 minutes, and you can jump in, whoever may, this will then evolve and it will change. And one of the responses from the Office of the Deputy President, and this might be a point of now contention, is the time that these supposed people were in this particular office in the clip that you're watching right now at Annex Building, the Deputy President's office. And part of the response here says, according to CCTV footage, former Sports Cabinet Secretary Rashid Echesa and his accomplices were inside the building from 9:38 to 10:02 as confirmed by the CCTV aired at the offices. The rest of the time, the CCTV played at the DCI shows their movement outside the office. So we're getting lost in some of the details of how long it was. What would you want us to, how would you want us to deal with this story moving forward?
These are very important details, particularly because what Kinoti released today is contradicting what the DP himself had said.
Yes.
Therefore, it is part of our responsibility as we analyze those videos to also look at if there are any contradictions or anything which and to ask the questions. Mm-hmm. I noticed that I was watching from home in my living room. All the questions which were asked by journalists after that whole show were not answered. They say we are still investigating or we are not at liberty to say. Then you ask them, what was the point of calling the press if you don't want to answer questions? Mm-hmm. Actually, that show today raised more questions than it answered. And we're not saying Kinoti should not release statements or should not talk to the media. We welcome that transparency. But we do hope that we are not being given skewed reports, incomplete records, reports designed to mislead us into then writing misleading news and headlines, and so on and so forth. So we should have within ourselves, we should be able to ask those questions. If there are gaps in that information, we should be able to point it out.
Yes. But some might say, Christine, we should be clear enough as a journalist and the professionals to see where we are being used to be part of the bigger story.
Certainly. Mm-hmm.
Yes, because half-truths are still lies. When someone presents something that is half-baked, that does not mean that that's the truth. And it's very easy for us to be in this race, like you said earlier, in this race to be not to be left behind in the story, that we have to be there on and on and on. But like I said, without actually making that connection between, like what Eric said, this is what has happened, this is what we do next, this is where we are failing. This is what I'm saying by letting the story mature to the point where we can actually make meaningful inferences from the information that we are being given. Okay. I'm looking forward to that. I hope that by the end of this saga, if I can call it that, that will be able to get that at the end. That this is actually what happened, and this is why it matters, and this is what we should be paying attention to, and these are the lessons for us to learn.